Good morning. It's Monday. How's everyone doing? We woke up in a great state, but with kind of some poor weather over the past couple of days.
Merry Christmas.
Utah does this sometimes where you feel like, hey, we're about to have summer, and they're like, it's like, no, not yet.
This is one of the latest I remember. Cinco de Mayo and like genuine snow.
Tried to take my kid golfing yesterday, and they're like, what are you talking about? Get out of here.
You got to play in the muck every once in a while.
They're like,
though.
look outside. I was like, all right, whatever. We have an incredible guest today. We have Andrea Thomas, the Chief Experience Officer at the University of Utah. Andrea, how are you?
I'm great. Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, tell us about what you do at the University of Utah.
Yeah, I have a great role. I've been in it for almost 2 years. So we just finished up our second academic year. We had commencement last week. And I lead the marketing team across campus. And then I also am responsible for student experience. And this role was kind of modeled on the vision of retail. I was in retail for many years, and customer experience was everything. And you think about the customer journey, and you know things that you need to do along the way in the journey to make it a better experience. And there was a great opportunity with students who spend 4+ years. Sometimes, they do their graduate work and really think about their experience from the day they get accepted until the day they graduate in more of a connected way is the role that I have. Now, there's a lot of people across campus that have very important roles with students, the colleges, the academic advisors. So I just kind of coordinate between all of that. They don't all report to me or anything. It's a very collaborative role where we're just making the best experience that we can for students.
How do you think about the fact that the university probably has a lot of customers, right? You've got
so many
professors, you've got students, you've got the state, you've got,
alumni, fans.
Alumni, exactly. How do you, where do you choose to focus when you're thinking about what customers to serve?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. This goes back to kind of brand principles. When you know your target and what your target needs, then you can speak directly to them in a really relevant way. So if you think about what faculty and staff need, who come up there every day for, decades, some of them, versus students who come up there every day during the school year for a compressed period of time, but completely immersive, versus fans who are in and out of the seasons, alumni who love to come back, but they've kind of spread out all over the world. It's different things that they're interested in, and we have to really think about the best way to reach them and, what channels they're looking at. We have lots of different things that we do, but a lot of what we do kind of has everybody together, and we're lifting up what we think is important for all of them. Also, we have University of Utah Health, and so we have patients. Mm-hmm. We have people that are getting treated for serious illnesses, and there's a level of care that we're very focused on there. And so the hospital element and the U Health element and the research part of it, and how to talk about very complex research, it is the most broad and complex brand, if you can even call it a brand or experience, that all comes together in our little corner, northeast corner of Salt Lake Valley. So it's really fascinating and really exciting.
It's awesome.
University of Utah, for better or worse, is still, or has been known as a computer campus. Do you find it a little bit harder, easier versus like a Notre Dame or a Penn State, where they control the whole ecosystem?
Yeah, so I think commuter campus is something we've been known for throughout, it's we just had our 155th graduation ceremony last week. But we actually have community on campus now, and we're building a lot more. So we've got about 6,000 beds on campus. In the next 5 years, it's going to be 10 or 11,000. And then because we're in an urban setting, just 3 miles from the middle of downtown Salt Lake, there's a lot of students living right around campus. And we're now about 45% of our incoming classes from out of state.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of people who know the U from like the 80s and 90s say, oh, it's a commuter campus. But those that have been there in the, 2015, 2020, 2024, they're like, yeah, it's a more of a community campus and it's becoming more and more community all the time.
Yeah, that's great. Because that has a lot of the, look and feel of, the kids and the students are kind of running their own narratives. They're not like, I live in my mom's basement, just like I did a year ago.
Yeah, we're actually hoping to get to a point where all first-year students live on campus. Obviously, if you live 5 minutes away, we're not going to force everybody, but we encourage it because it's a different experience, the way you get connected to the community. And then we see that students have more success when they start on campus because they build the networks, they know where all the support is, they understand the resources. And so we're getting very close to being able to have all first-year students on campus and then welcome as many second-year, third-year, fourth-year students as want to be there.
That's amazing. It also limits the parking problems, right? Because that was also a gripe for a long time is the parking. But if more people just live there, they can use the buses and all of that.
We are working on solving parking as well. It's funny because people think parking is right next to the door I want to go into. But, finding parking and then it's almost like when you order something from Amazon and they talk about the last mile, it's kind of the same thing, only it's the last, few feet. And so getting shuttles and trolleys and, different ways to get people from, remote parking to closer into the middle of campus is something that we're also working on.
Yeah. I always just say, you're young and fit. You can walk a mile. It's good for you.
It's very funny because, we've got this fabulous student life center. And I was just up there talking to the person who manages it. And he's like, yeah, the cardio equipment really isn't all that used, but we do a lot more with like the weights and the climbing and all these other things. And it's like, yeah, people get their cardio walking to and from class. I mean, it's a 300-foot grade from the bottom of campus to the top of campus. So there's a little hiking that goes on going across campus.
And it's beautiful. And that's where you get to do the old, hey, how's it going? And have fun with your friends.
Yeah.
The moving of conferences, right? Like not that long ago, if we were thinking like 155 graduating classes, Utah wasn't in the Pac-12. It's been a good run, but we're going to switch and it's going to go a little bit more Midwest. I assume this will be fun for folks that you lead and the campus as a whole, because you're going to learn what you learned from the Pac-12, but then you're going to have a whole new set of like really cool things that you learn. And we were talking a little bit beforehand. It's a lot more collaborative than people think. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So joining the Pac-12 was really big for the University of Utah. So this was in 2011, and it was our first time in a Power 5 conference. I think, recruiting really changed, the ability to get top talent and retain great coaches and things like that. I think changed with our ability to join the Pac-12. But there was a lot that happened academically that people don't really see. And, the Pac-12 wanted to make sure that there was a certain level of research that was going on. And then there's collaboration in research. And so in that, I guess it was, 13 years that we were in the Pac-12. I think we learned a lot from some incredible schools. And we really grew up into, a top research university. And I think that in 2019, we joined the American Association of Universities, which is the top, it's both public and private universities, at the top research universities. We have an academic medical center on our campus. There's about 20 public universities across the country that have academic medical centers adjacent to campus. And so, we get together regularly. Every month we have a big Pac-12 call amongst kind of all the departments, talk to their conference counterparts. And we've been welcomed with open arms. We've just started talking to our Big 12 counterparts, there's actually 16 schools in the Big 12. So you can't
the math doesn't add up.
Yeah, the conference names does not mean exactly who's in the conference. And so there is a lot of collaboration. Even within the universities across the state, there's a lot more collaboration than people think. There's research projects. A couple years ago, there was a lot of discussion about a research project on the Great Salt Lake that crossed multiple universities. The University of Utah is going to be, they've already announced that the Huntsman Cancer Center in Utah County, and there's a lot of collaboration with BYU and UVU and doing all the things to make that successful. So there's a lot more collaboration than people think within the state and across the conference. So it'll be great to have new schools get to know new people and, still be able to reach back out to the folks that we know from other conferences.
Yeah. One of the more recent and I think really cool collaborations was with Salt Lake Community College. You guys have a big campus on the west side of the valley now.
We do. Yeah, it's in Harriman. And the partnership there, I think, is fabulous for people on the south side of the valley, and also economically, if you're going to Salt Lake Community College, which has lower tuition for your first couple of years, and then you don't even have to go to another place. You can stay right there in Harriman and finish your degree at the University of Utah. And so
that's cool.
It's a beautiful building, and it's a real synergistic kind of relationship there. And then if the major you want isn't in the Harriman campus, then you can, go up to the main campus, and, you've got a lot of choices there. And so that part, I think, is really nice as well.
Yeah.
How's the university been thinking about paying athletes, and now that their student athletes can make deals and make money outside of the university? How are you feeling about that, and how is the university feeling about it?
Yeah, so when that all started, we were very fortunate because we had a great infrastructure with the Lassonde Entrepreneurial Institute for small business owners. And so we had a whole big way that they could get mentors and figure things out. And when athletes are getting paid, they're their own business. And so they have to incorporate, they have to pay taxes, they have to do all these things. And so we actually had all that already set up for them. So we were able to connect them very easily with a program that just, connected them right to the business school. And then the Crimson Collective has been growing since all that happened. We have got a fabulous fan base. We're obviously watching very closely a lot of NCAA legislation discussions, the government things that are happening, and we'll be prepared to pivot as it happens. We have just phenomenal professionals on our campus. We have amazing alumni. I think, a lot of the big schools have the resources to kind of figure out as it happens. It is tricky for smaller schools if you're not already in a conference that has a lot of resources to help you think through these things, or a lot of connections to people who have been through similar things. There's a lot of state law that goes into it, so there's differences across states. So it's hugely complex, but we've just got some great professionals that are ready to make adjustments as needed.
Cool. You've had an amazing career with some really cool brands and companies: Pizza Hut, Frito-Lay, PepsiCo, Hershey's, and Walmart. What an advantage it is for the University of Utah to have you, and you can use all of your experience and apply that to the University of Utah on the campus. What are some of the things you have applied based on your learnings of your career?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. I initially had a non-compete when I left Walmart, so they paid me for 2 years, but I couldn't work for 2 years. And so it was a pretty restrictive non-compete because Walmart does business with everybody. Everybody's either their supplier or their competitor in some way, shape, or form. And so we had been living in Arkansas, and my youngest was going into high school at that time. And so we knew that we had to go somewhere where he could go through high school. So we made a very quick decision to come back home. Both my husband and I are from Salt Lake, and so we wanted to come back home. And I had been on the National Advisory Board at the business school at the University of Utah, and the National Advisory Council at BYU in the business school. And so I thought, this will give me a couple years where I can really go back, give back, and, kind of sit out my non-compete. So we ended up in Salt Lake. So I called the dean of the business school, who is currently our president, Taylor Randall, And I just said, hey, I've got a couple of years where I need health insurance, but my salary's pretty much covered. Is there anything I can do to help? And he said, give me 24 hours. And so he called me back the next day, which was incredible. And he said, we've got some need for some teaching in brand management, like an area I'd had 25 years of experience in. And he said, and I've got some things that I want your help scaling. So Business Scholars was a program at the time for first year business students, and we had about 200 in it. He wanted to make it available to all incoming freshmen. And so it was a job with scaling. Well, that happens to be something I got really good at Walmart. You can't do anything small at Walmart. I had been managing this women's economic empowerment project where we were working with women-owned businesses in developing countries, and we had to be very careful about not scaling them too fast because that could really put them in financial duress, and if it didn't sustain, it could really ruin their entire business. So it was a very thoughtful, very careful program that we developed there that had a lot of really amazing principles to how to scale things. And so that's an area I think that I really could help the business school. Another thing is I ended up administering large teams. The biggest team I had at Walmart, I was in a role. I led private label there, private brands for a long time, and that was it was about a $20 billion business at the time across 150 categories, and we had more than a dozen brands, and so there was a lot of detail that went into that. And I had a team that was sourcing, doing a lot of sourcing that was all over the world. And so we had to manage time zones and things like that. And so just managing complexity was an area that happened to help me in being able to do like the role I have now, where there's a lot of complexity that you have to really look at and find the threads that you can really be synergistic on and help those grow and help everybody. So that's something that I think helped. And then I had many years experience on the brand management and innovation side. And the University of Utah has a brand. It's a pretty well-known brand, but there's opportunities for us, I think, to become national and global with the brand even more than we are today. We've got some exciting things on the horizon. We're hosting a presidential debate this fall. We're hopefully, preparing to host the Olympics in 10 years. And so really looking at our brand and how to scale our brand and how to make it relevant globally is something that I learned a lot at Walmart. I had a global job at Walmart, a global job at Hershey. And so you learn kind of how to be relevant and how to position yourself given the differences across the globe.
Yeah. For people like you, I'm always interested if something's simple. What do you do if something's like actually simple and not complex? Does it worry you? You're like, oh, this shouldn't be this simple.
Sometimes it's like, oh, that's too easy. Maybe I didn't think about it hard enough. And then it's like, oh, you know what? Take the wins when they're not as complicated. My husband used to tell me, that it's my fault when I'd come in and say, oh, this is so complex. And he's like, you sign up for those. That's what you seek out. So you can't really complain that something's complicated because you were drawn to that. Yeah. And it's very true. I've found myself, now that I have adult children, I found myself needing to step back because I'm like the fix-it person. And they'll say, Mom, I'm going to tell you something, but you don't need to fix it. I'm just telling you so you can listen. So I've had to kind of meter myself a little bit in those types of things.
Oh, yeah. But it's good that we have lots of people like you on planet Earth that can fix the complicated things.
Happens to be a lot of complicated things, and the bigger things grow. And it seems like in the past 15 years or so, things are more complex because we have visibility to more things. And so I think the world's getting more, not less complex, just as time goes on. And, when I started my marketing career in 1993, things were pretty straightforward and simple. And I watched it several times change. So, it changed a lot when information became more available, when social media started, when, the big national kind of channels that we had became more local and more fragmented, when data gathering started. And so now we kind of know people are not in kind of a segment anymore. They're all individuals. Each individual is their own thing. And so that's kind of changed. And so even just change makes things complex because you have to move from the way you did something to the way you need to do something moving forward.
Yeah. A very complex and really fun event. The Kentucky Derby was this weekend. Once the horses start racing, it's only complex for 20 people. But for everybody else, there was a lot of work that went into it. Mystic Dan ended up winning, but it was a photo finish with Sierra Leone and Forever Young, and it was close. But a lot of people are there for the pageantry, for the mint juleps, for my old Kentucky home, all of that. As someone that is focused on brands and big products and fun events, what are your thoughts on the Kentucky Derby?
Yeah, I think tradition and rituals kind of make things really resonate and connect and kind of help with the celebrations of life. I mean, I've worked on rituals a lot. When I was at Frito-Lay, I had the Tostitos brand, and we traveled. This was in 2000, the ESPN College Game Day. We were launching new products, and so we did a promotion with them, and we traveled with them to every game day that fall and did a big tailgate, and we were launching new products with that. I launched Tostitos Scoops that way, and so people got to try it when we went and did that. And that's a ritual. You know, sports are rituals. University is kind of full of the big rituals because, you know, at the end of every semester, you kind of have this break. And then we just had commencement last week. And there were a lot of really exciting traditions and rituals that went along with that. I think it's amazing. I think, you know, it gives people an opportunity to kind of make something special. That's why we like holidays. That's like why we like to get together with our families to celebrate people on their birthdays, because I think it just adds just a lot of connection and it elevates the experience. I mean, if you think about athletics, it has a lot of tradition and rituals, but it's also kind of as you go through the season. And like, you know, University of Utah lacrosse team yesterday just won their conference. And so that's like a big deal for those kids who worked hard that entire season to kind of be able to end that up and having everybody watch and celebrate that. I think it just really, you know, adds to life.
Oh, for sure.
How about the baseball team?
Baseball
team's doing great. My son's a baseball player. He's playing up in Oregon. And so oh man, there's so much tradition, ritual, and superstition in baseball. But they're doing phenomenal. And I know a bunch of the kids up there, and it's just so exciting to see them come in. And people didn't have a lot of expectations, and then they just exceeded everybody's expectation. But when you talk to the team, they've connected so much as a team. They always knew they could do it. It's just nobody expected that out of them. And when the season goes on, and to see them rise to the occasion, it's just really thrilling.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and they had to play during like a winter, spring, right?
For sure. Yeah,
cold weather baseball.
They were in Oregon over this last weekend, and my son was playing in Oregon. He said it was 40 degrees and raining the whole time that he was playing his games on Sunday. And I know the U played on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and so it's tough to play in some of the places they play.
Yeah, for sure. Anecdotally, right, I talked to a lot of folks from outside the state, and the University of Utah is known on these phone calls, right? They're just fleeting. Biomedical, genetics, medicine, and now it's a little bit more with Lassonde kind of entrepreneurship. BYU is like, oh man, there's a lot of good entrepreneurs that come from BYU. Utah State, little entrepreneurship, and then like ag tech and that type of thing. Do you think that'll change over time with the University of Utah being less known for like the medicine and the Nobel Prize winners and genetics and those types of things? Or do you think it's just perfect the way it is with what the University of Utah is known for?
You know, there's so much opportunity. There's so much more going on than people know about. And honestly, the work that our researchers do is very complex. It goes over a long period of time. You know, one of the things that I'm super excited about that we're starting to see a lot more come out is that, once you start doing work in an area, the work builds and you can learn new things. We're doing phenomenal things in cancer research, in genetic research. They've got data sets that have been connected from, the medical records they have and the genealogical records that the state, has. They've kind of combined those, which is why there's so much genetic research going on. There's a lot of environmental research going on. It's just phenomenal, the people that are coming. And I think what you see at the University of Utah, and I'm sure other universities are doing it, I'm just not as familiar, you start having these centers and institutes come in, which really gives you an opportunity to bring thought leaders together on some of these areas that they're doing research on. And then it really allows that to connect to practical application so that people can start seeing a difference in their community or in their life. And so I really think that the University of Utah is poised to collaborate with the institutions of higher education across the state to really make lives better for everybody who lives here because of all the work that's happening, and the work just gets built upon. I think our state has a fantastic economy. We have, great leadership. There's a lot of states don't have the kind of growth mindset and leadership that we have in state government. So I think that puts us in a unique position. Silicon Slopes, with all the entrepreneurial, mindset that people have along Silicon Slopes, and you all know that very, very well. I think we're just in a special place here as a state. I know that we were often in the past thought of as a small state. We're now a medium-sized state. We now have the economy that's really, helping us. We've got a lot of momentum as a state, and I think that people are recognizing that, and I think it's pretty phenomenal for the University of Utah, but for the entire state.
Yeah.
What do you think about the future of higher education? I mean, that's being talked about more and more over the past decade or so. And it continues to, right? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think higher education is an institution that's been around for a very, very long time. I think that the world's changing. We've talked about the changes. We've talked about how much things, when there's innovation coming, how you need to adjust. I don't think that every institution of higher education is great at adjusting. I also don't know that every part, wants to change. They kind of get, there's a lot of tradition in the way that they approach things. I do think that we as a society, people, have the benefit of going into things that they're really interested in going into. I think there's always going to be a place for higher education. I think we have to make sure that the value's there. The value can demonstrate itself in a lot of different ways. One is to prepare people for jobs that, that they are able to succeed in, and, adding value to the community by having graduates work there. The research adds value. I mean, research is creating new knowledge. It adds value to people. I think one of the things that's really interesting, our state is one of the most collaborative states. They've done, studies, and we come up pretty high on our ability to collaborate with each other. And we're working really hard at the University of Utah in collaboration across all the institutions of higher ed across the state. And I think our ability to collaborate and kind of lift up the entire state, every person in the entire state, whether we do it through, you go to the doctor at U Health, or, even if you're in a different health system, all of the specialized care, you have places that are prepared. They call it tertiary and quaternary care. And so prepared to do that. So just having that access, I think, really benefits folks. I don't think it's a fit for everybody. And so I think that's where it's important that society supports people who, want to live the dreams that they have. I think that the schools that aren't adjusting to how things are changing are the ones that are pricing themselves out of relevance, and they're the schools that, are not doing as well. We've been growing and we continue to grow because I think what we offer is relevant. And I think we need to continue to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that the education, the experience, and our ability to place people in jobs that, we're really delivering that for our students.
So great to see you.
Good to see you too.
And to have you here. My word, that's incredible. We could talk to you for hours on this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by it. Well, Andrea, thank you for everything you do. Everybody knows how to get engaged with the University of Utah, right?
That's the easiest one.
That is
There's a million
it's
ways.
literally the University of Utah. It, there's no other one like it.
Nope.
Andrea, thank you so much for coming on. Tomorrow we have
Derek Anderson,
Oh.
co-founder of Bevy.
Derek Anderson, co-founder of Bevy, co-founder or maybe even just straight up founder of Startup Grind, kind of a mini startup celebrity, right?
Yeah, he's on.
Not as cool as Andrea,
No.
but he'll
He'll be good.
he'll be okay. Okay, we'll see everybody tomorrow.